Evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you after the spring game, which saw a great crowd make their way to Harrisonburg, Virginia, to enjoy some tailgate action as well as some great action on the field. We're going to get to all the action that happened yesterday in Harrisonburg, recap what was a great day and a celebration of all things JMU football. A really big weekend for all of JMU football in general. We had a big event on Friday night where at Jack's Hideaway in Harrisonburg, we actually debuted the newest edition of Champions Drive Tailgate Bourbon. This one is called Pilot. This is critically important because this is the third in the series of the Champions Drive Tailgate Bourbon. What makes this one so unique is it is going to be the first of the Champions Drive Bourbon that is going to be available in over 150 ABC stores across Virginia. So this is exciting because it's going to make the product more accessible, but it's also just the next step in the evolution that has come from everyone at the collective. Just a great celebration for this product and what it's taken to get this to where it is. Really want to appreciate the support from the board as well as the team at Swill Dog Distillery for making that possible. So stay tuned to your email if you are a member of the Montpelier Collective, as well as the Montpelier Collective social accounts. Over the coming hours, we're going to be having more information about the pre-order for members of the Montpelier Collective, as well as when it will be available for the general public. So a big week for the collective. Also was the football alumni golf tournament this weekend. Got a chance to interact and see many of the football alums who made their trek to Harrisonburg. They also had a huge tailgate set up in F-Lot yesterday, which is also kind of the next evolution of their step in the process. So really excited to see all that. We're going to get to all that. To our sponsors, Where's Woody, Talent Corp, Your Purple Nation, and Shoker Enterprises. Thank you for your support of JMU Sound Off. And with that, we're going to bring on the rest of our Sound Off team to get their thoughts on all things this weekend. We'll bring in Steve Brown, as well as Michael Evangelista and Taylor Atkins. Guys, big weekend in Harrisonburg. I know, Taylor, you had some family commitments, but it was good to see you, Steve. Kind of your fast thoughts from this weekend.
It was just good to be with everybody again and be down on the field. And I think we had more people in the stands than we did last year. And good to see how big and huge this team is. If you weren't there yesterday, you will be pleasantly surprised when you see them in August. That's a massive group of young men.
And Michael, you were on the sidelines Saturday as well, getting the up-close view of this team in action. You've also been out to some practices this fall, or spring, in advance of this fall. Kind of your thoughts initially on what you saw yesterday or any other aspect of what you've seen in your appearances at practice.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Steve took it out of my mouth. The team looks huge. I think 3 years of recruiting at the FBS level, recruiting that type of athlete, as well as bringing that type of athlete in through the portal has paid huge dividends. I was pleasantly surprised to see the team in person. Also, like, knowing the weather situation from yesterday and thinking of what could have been, what a turnout. It was such a great community event. I think we probably had, like Steve said, probably more people than we had last year. And I think it was calling for rain right until midnight. And then it was clear from there. We had Apache helicopters fly in, which was wild. That was super cool to see. They had the football alum tailgate. It was just a great day to be in the Valley. And honestly, it felt more like a fall day than a spring day. So that was also a plus.
And Taylor, I know you weren't in Harrisonburg, but kind of your just thoughts on what you've seen from afar of what this football team is bringing to the table. Lots of new faces, some new coaches on the roster, some new transfers who seem to be gelling well, all in anticipation of what's going to kick off in just a few months as we make our way through what's going to be quite the exciting schedule.
Yeah, we've had some coaching turnover and player turnover, but it's nothing that any other program across the country is looking at right now. And I think the biggest thing is that we're not 3 months removed from a new coach having to come into Harrisonburg, get acquainted with everything, meet his coaching staff, get to know his staff, get to know the players, put together a spring practice schedule, put together a spring game. I think, the coaching staff and the players are much more in the JMU way this year. And, talking to you, Michael and Steve, and hearing about just the look of the team yesterday, all reports sound very good coming out of camp. And I know we're going to have a guest on here in a bit that's been sharing the good news all throughout spring camp. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Well, let's get right to that. Let's bring on the man of the hour, somebody who is about as close to this program as you could possibly get. And that is the voice of JMU football, Dave Riggert. Dave, lots of different directions we can go. Obviously, you were on hand calling the game Saturday. But before we get to what took place yesterday, I just kind of want you to give your thoughts on general. There's a lot has happened with this program. Obviously, a year ago, this was a coaching staff that were all living under one roof in the same house. There was, a ton of transition happening in Harrisonburg. They're a more settled group. I'm curious, has that been noticeable at practice? Just the comfortability level of this staff now, with the players, with the support staff, and everything around it. Because I imagine that's made a big difference in what their day-to-day interactions are with like this entire program.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's night and day from where it was a year ago. And thanks for having me on, fellows. It was a fun day in Harrisonburg yesterday, and always good to talk with you guys. But it is night and day. And I've talked to a lot of guys throughout camp, a lot of the coaches throughout camp, and it is night and day. Everybody was trying to figure out each other last spring. Almost all the guys, except for the guys that came from Holy Cross, they understood what was going to happen in practice, but didn't really. No one else did. No one knew where they were going to go. No one knew what was going to happen when they went from one drill to the next. Okay, where do we go next? I remember talking to Sam Daniels during spring ball last year, and he had just come in. He goes, "I've never been a part of a practice like this." Now they all get it. Now they all understand it. And again, I think the biggest takeaway that I have from when the season ended to right now is the retention of players. We talk about all the new players, some new coaches, but they retained a lot of guys in this day and age of the transfer portal. To be able to retain the guys they did and the core pieces on the offensive line, obviously at running back and Yamir Knight at receiver, and then on the defensive side with Emmanuel Bush and Jacob Thomas and Trent Hendrick, guys like that. They probably could have tested the waters and done something else like so many people do these days. So for this staff to retain so many guys and just lose a few pieces, honestly, they've got a great core coming back. They did a great job with the portal. You talked about how big this team is. It's much different than it was a couple of years ago, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But it's night and day. All the guys know. Coach Chesney at practice, when he goes from drill to drill, he blows his whistle. He yells out what the next thing is, whether it's individual, whether it's team, whatever it is, and the team has to respond. They had a hard time with that a year ago. Things like that are very easy, and all the other guys that are here and were retained that know the way of what they do now in this culture. They've spread that to the new guys, and those guys have fit right in. So it's been pretty seamless. It's been a really, really good spring. I've been very impressed by what I've seen this spring, and I think that leads to, again, you can't always tell if that's going to lead to a great fall, but I think that it's got the makings of what could be a really good fall.
Dave, in addition to the retention, I also noticed we brought a lot of early enrollees in for the spring. I think we have 9 or 10. Talk to us a little bit. You've been in the practices around the early enrollees. I mean, these guys should be in prom, finishing up algebra class and doing their AP exams or whatnot, but they're on campus. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about them?
It's wild to see these guys out there because you're right. They should be getting ready for prom or going to prom right now and finishing up high school. But so many kids do that these days. But it's been increasing here recently here at JMU. So I think that talks about what this program means to so many guys that are coming out of high school, because some of those guys get lost with the transfer portal and just bringing in 4-year transfers and trying to fill the gaps that way. When you bring in high school kids and they come in early, that's huge for them. A couple years ago, I think DJ Barksdale was the only senior that came in. A couple years ago, there were a few more last year, and now this year there's a ton of them, and they were shown out yesterday. Michael Scott did a great job. He made some huge plays in the receiving game. Jackson McCarter, the running back, he was phenomenal. Cole Webster on the defensive line was really, really good. And there's others. There's a tight end that was playing, receiver that was playing, offensive lineman out there. There's a kid from Texas that I had Cole Potts and Tanner Morris in the booth with me, and they said that they've never seen a technician at his age, when he should be in high school right now, on the football field this early. So there's been some guys that have really stood out and could carve themselves a role in the fall. We saw Dylan Williams do that a year ago in the spring game, and then he carved out a role. It wasn't a huge role, but it was a role for a true freshman. You can't ask for much more than that. So I think some of these guys will probably play next year, and they turn some heads. There's no doubt about it. But it's got to be a challenge for these guys to obviously. You're going through high school, and all of a sudden you're with guys like Emmanuel Bush and guys that have been Pat McMurtry. This is his 7th year. This is his 7th spring ball. I mean, it's a different animal, but these guys have handled it really, really good.
What's the biggest surprise you've seen so far in 2025 with this team?
The biggest surprise, I think, how well they've adjusted the defense. Because honestly, last spring, the defense was a disaster. And you guys saw some of it. It was not good. I was really worried for the fall because the offense was taken into the defense almost every single day. And now you bring in a new defensive coordinator and Coach Hitchler, a new linebackers coach and Coach Plungus, but they have kind of simplified things. That's the one thing that I've heard from all the defensive players is that the defense is a little simplified. They're still going to be aggressive. They're still going to try and take the football away like they did a year ago. There's going to be some things that are very similar to what they've been. But even talking with Tanner Morris, who's been around these guys and been through spring, helping the offensive line, but seeing the defense as well. He says it's a little bit more maybe like what we saw from Coach Haynes a couple years ago. So very similar to what people have seen, but there are some differences. I think we'll see more different coverages in the secondary. Will probably play a little bit more zone, not just man to man all the time. But these guys have picked it up very well. And I think from the very beginning, they've been flying around. They installed it during the meetings when they were working out and doing that before spring ball. And it's been very seamless. So that's probably the biggest surprise. I thought there might be some more hiccups with the defense and maybe looking a little bit like they did a year ago and struggling, but that's not been the case. That's one thing I've seen them fly around, and that's a non-negotiable with Coach Hitch. They've got to fly around, get 11 halves of the football, and they've picked it up very quickly.
Dave, have you had a chance to talk to any of the transfers or even some of the incoming freshmen about just now that they're on campus, they're engaged in workouts and stuff, just kind of what their impression is with JMU? I mean, it's kind of outside of that regional bubble of FCS football. The last 3 years, we've kind of taken the FBS, league by storm. I mean, having a 9-4 record is kind of your down year, a bowl win and a 9-4 record. And so I'm sure a lot of people have kind of heard about JMU in the last 3 or 4 years that weren't so familiar with it. So have you had a chance to talk to anybody about kind of their first impressions in their first few months on campus?
The two main guys that I've talked to the last couple of weeks have been Mekhi Rogers, the transfer from St. Francis at corner, and then Jalen Sanchez, receiver from Villanova. And those guys being in the FCS, Mekhi Rogers, he's like on cloud 9 right now being at JMU. He was at a Division III school for 2 years, then at St. Francis. And I didn't even kind of talk to him about this. And he started bringing up like, where I was before and he was at St. Francis, they didn't really care about football. We just kind of went about our thing. And some people would show up to the game and I go, have you realized how they care about football here? And he goes, it is unbelievable. He goes, I go around town and I want to wear my JMU football stuff because fans will interact with them. They'll understand the importance of what it means. So he was the one that was really shocked with how amazing the atmosphere has been here. Obviously, how they take care of them in the football room and everything. That's second to none too. So he's been amazing. And Jalen Sanchez talked a lot about that too. And he was at a place that cares about football. But let's be honest, at Villanova, it's all basketball. And to be here where football and everything else matters, but football is a big deal. That meant a lot to him. And he's known this coaching staff for a while just because he was recruited by them to go to Holy Cross. And there's quite a few guys that were recruited by this staff, went somewhere else. And that's kind of why they've ended up here. And Jalen is one of those guys. And I think he's going to have a big impact on this team. And the one thing that I've noticed too is that they have recruited unbelievable human beings. Those two are a couple of them. But I was talking with CJ Hansen, who played for Coach Chesney and the staff at Holy Cross and was drafted by the Chiefs. He was the same class as Jacob Dobbs. And he's been in Harrisonburg like 3 or 4 times throughout spring ball. He was here for some games when the Chiefs had a bye week. And he's just been around the guys. And he and I were talking, and I was talking to Jacob Dobbs about this during Pro Day, that there's just some unbelievable guys that Coach brings in. And again, there were great guys that came in with Coach Signetti and the coaches before that. But it's pretty cool to see that type of just human beings that they bring into this program to make it even better. And they're good football players, they're better humans. And again, they are having a blast here. All the new guys that I've talked to just love it here.
I think too, Dave, is like, in addition to that, I mean, Jalen Sanchez has been a 3-year productive player for Villanova, right? Been in key situations. Kai Rogers, I think, has been in key situations, and you could see it on the field. I think, he's 6'1", 6'2" at corner. He stands out. He looks the part. Same thing with Sanchez. He made some big catches yesterday. So I'm really excited to see what how they can contribute for the fall. I want to talk a little bit about off the field, or maybe kind of off the field, and the impact of some new coaches. I saw the football staff announce a handful of coaches, including Richard Rogers as assistant head coach, as well as Eric Mealy, who I think was like Mike Leach's right-hand man at Mississippi State and was at UNC last year. Talk a little bit about that.
I think that's one thing that Coach Chesney's been able to do, and Coach Plungus is the new linebackers coach. And just think about what he was doing. He's been the defensive coordinator running a defense at an FCS program, a Division I program, but he took a linebacker job at James Madison. I mean, that tells you the respect that I think this program has and the type of people that Coach Chesney can get here. And Coach Hitchler, again, he was at Alabama. I know he was let go, but he's been at Alabama, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, big time programs. And then he wants to come here and work with Coach Chesney. So that's kind of the clout that I think Coach Chesney has and guys that he can bring in. So despite losing some guys, I think it's been pretty impressive to bring in guys like that. And you mentioned Coach Mealy. I think he's going to be a tremendous addition to special teams. He's going to work hand in hand with Coach Kanan. And Coach Chesney was talking about, I asked him if there was a connection in the past, and he's just like, no, there wasn't a connection, but we saw that Mississippi State, when Coach Leach was there and he was there, that they ran some fakes and we were really impressed by what they did. So we just reached out, wanted to talk to him, and then they built up a friendship. And then all of a sudden now he's coaching with them here. And Coach Rogers was in the National Football League for a long time. So they've got more staff for their recruiting as well to help bring in talent. So they've added a lot of new pieces and shifted some pieces around to really elevate this program. And when Coach Signetti was kind of in the transition, and I think he was the perfect man for the transition. He knew that there was going to be more coaches needed and more pieces filled. Dietitians need to be more with strength and conditioning, and now we're all seeing it come to fruition right now. It's taken a couple years, but now you're seeing coaches added, and it's been a huge addition, I think, in the spring, and I think it's making everything work a little bit more seamlessly right now.
What are you seeing in the differences in the weight room? It seems to me that they're, they are bigger and look stronger. They look more cut. Is there something different in the program? Are they using catapult differently? Have you talked with any of the folks in the strength and conditioning side about what's different?
Yeah, I've talked to Coach Gratzky a little bit. I've talked to some of the players, kind of what's been different this spring and in the winter conditioning and everything, and a little bit more power stuff. And one thing I asked Jacob Dobbs this because he's a big fan of Chris Gratzky, the new strength and conditioning coach, and I kind of wanted to get his thoughts because he mentioned it when he got hired. He put a post out that best strength and conditioning coach in the country, and I know he's biased because he was with him for 4 years, but for him to say that, I think it holds a lot of weight. So I was talking to Jacob when he was back during Pro Day, and he's just like, the one thing at Holy Cross, we dominated the second half of football games, and they're really going to use the technology. When I was talking to Coach Gratzky when he first got hired, obviously up in the New England area, there's a lot of technology and there's a lot of different things going on up there. And they were some of the first people to use some of that new technology at Holy Cross. So he is in with a lot of people up there to use some of the new technology for all the loads and everything with what they've got to do as far as using the catapults and how much they practice, how hard they practice, how fast they're going. So they use all of that to their advantage. And one thing that Jacob told me is that in the fourth quarter, it's going to make a huge difference because we dominated second halves at Holy Cross, and that's going to happen. And think back to last year a few times, fellas. There were some great starts by James Madison. Got some tremendous starts, but then it kind of went away a little bit in the second half. It wasn't as strong. So again, I'm not blaming anybody. It's a different way of doing things, but I think that's going to be a strength for this team moving forward, where they're really going to be able to use all the dynamic analytics that they have and really make these guys right. So I think, and I was talking to Coach Gratzky too. I go, kind of what's on your radar the next few weeks? And he was surprised that he was going to kind of do a pro combine for these guys coming up before they leave for summer and then come back for spring, because there are no recorded 40 times for anybody. They're not doing the bench 25 times. They just don't have any of that data. They haven't done things like that. So he's trying to get some more of that type of stuff involved with these guys so that they kind of have a baseline for what they want to do. So he's thinking about kind of doing a pro day for these guys over the next couple of weeks after they have a week off before they leave and get out of here for about a month or so. But all the guys have been very impressed. And again, that's what I take out of it. I think they're going to be better as the game wears on. They're going to be the more physically conditioned team than everybody they play. I'm a big fan of Coach Gratzky and what they're doing.
Dave, I was going to ask you, there's been a lot of news also off the field with this team kind of surrounding. We saw an article in the Daily News Record talking about possible future plans for Bridgeforth Stadium that could include some private investment, private development of the site. So that's out in the program. And then obviously JMU comes out and announces more premium seating options inside Bridgeforth. I'm just curious, being so close to the team, it is obvious now, now that Matt Roan is more comfortable in his role, now getting his feet wet, that his ability to be creative with the space to try to bring in more revenue to this program, in addition to what he's doing with Honors One and the collective, it is clear he has his finger on the pulse of this program in ways that that was an open-ended question. Is new coaches, yes, but now we have a new athletic director who's clearly making his mark as well.
Yeah, I love Matt Roan. He has been unbelievable. He is so good for this university. He is the right guy at the right time with everything that's going on. He has he has his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on, whether that's the House settlement, and NIL, everything that's going on right now. He has a pulse of what's going on, and he's on top of it. He knows a lot of people in the industry and what they need to do, and he will have James Madison in the best shape possible, whatever shape that is, wherever that lands with the House settlement and revenue sharing and everything like that. He will have JMU in the best possible spot to succeed. And the one thing that I keep talking to him about is, how does JMU sustain success when your best players are moving on to Power Fours? We obviously are seeing that in basketball right now. How does JMU sustain that success when the mid-majors, so to speak, are losing their best players? And he goes, we do it with people. That's what we do here. And we're going to continue to do it with people. We're going to get good people to be able to coach and mentor these kids to give them the best student athlete experience that they can have. And I think that goes a long way with a lot of people. Sure, there's going to be people that leave for the money, and it is what it is. I think we all know about that, but there's so many great people at JMU to make this right. And Coach and Matt Roan has been able to do a tremendous job. You're right, very creative with what they're trying to do. They have to raise money. They just have to continue to raise money with what they're going to do with the revenue sharing. This day and age, you've got to raise a lot of money and do different ways. And to be able to do some of the premium seating, the bushes, I think, are going to be out of there, and there's going to be some suites underneath the video board to make that a different experience. But how cool is that to have some touchdowns from Dukes right in the end zone with celebrating with fans right there and getting
It'll be handed off the ball. We'll have the Bridgeforth leap or something.
I was going to say it's almost like the Lambeau leap. So that'll be fun. But I haven't talked to him about the expansion of Bridgeforth, but I know that's on his mind. And I'm going to try and sit down with him pretty soon to talk about some of the new things that are going on, and we'll discuss that. And I think he wants to do it sooner rather than later. There's certainly need for it, want for it, and now it's a matter of trying to get it done. But he's been very creative, and again, like I said, he's got his finger on the pulse of everything going on in college athletics.
Well, remember, if any future plans for anything that Matt Roan wants to do are made easier by your visiting of jmudukeclub.com. So just that's a promo from us to help Matt out. I was going to ask you maybe one last question to kind of broaden out from just our focus on JMU football. Obviously, you're somebody who follows what's happening across the Sun Belt, and I know you haven't done your team previews yet or those conversations, but I know there was a Sun Belt call for coaches tomorrow. Any news or notes or interesting that's on your radar from what you're seeing in other Sun Belt programs as they've gone through the spring?
Honestly, I think it's pretty similar. It was interesting during the Sun Belt call the other day. There were some coaches that missed it, and I don't know how you miss your one call of the spring where you don't make it, but I won't call those coaches out. But there were a few that missed it, and honestly, I think everybody's kind of in the same boat. They're trying to figure things out, and honestly, at this point in time, I was talking with somebody yesterday, just talking about the Sun Belt, and we were just like, well, who do you think is going to be good? And honestly, I don't think I don't think any of us know. I think the preseason polls, I honestly think you can probably throw them out the window now. They're going to come out. They're going to have them for the Sun Belt Media Days. But I think everybody's in the same boat. They just don't know. You can have App State had the most players back of anybody in the Sun Belt last year, and they were supposed to win the East. They didn't. They really weren't that close. And who knows what's going to happen from now until the fall. Some guys are going to move on. Some guys are going to come in. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I think all these programs are in the same boat, and they're just trying to do the best they can. There's going to be some guys that move on, and there's just so much turnover now on these rosters that you just don't know from year to year. And you can expect, oh, that guy looks pretty good on paper. Yeah, he might, but is he going to translate? You don't know. So I think there's just so much unknown right now that everybody's in the same boat. I don't know that anybody's further ahead than anybody else. Even if you have a lot of guys back, there could be some turnover in your coaching staff and other positions that you just don't know. So I think throw the preseason polls out the window. It doesn't matter. Marshall wasn't supposed to be very good last year, and they won the whole thing. So I think it's going to change from year to year, and that's just where we are in this day and age of college athletics at this level.
Yeah.
So Dave, coaches pitch players when they're recruiting to come to Harrisonburg. Let's not focus on players. Let's talk about the casual fan, not the diehards. And I know that all you got to do is really put a picture of our schedule this year, and that alone is reason why this should be one of the most anticipated seasons ever. But having been around the team this spring, having gotten to know Roan, our new athletic director, over the last year, give a pitch right now to the casual fan of why JMU fans coming out of this spring and with our new administration should be really excited about what's coming in the fall.
Well, I think the one thing that stands out to me, and again, I brought up Tanner and Cole. They were in the booth with me, and that was really fun to have them yesterday. And I think Cole's going to do it in the fall with me too. So that'll be great to have a player that's played for Coach Chesney really kind of know this team. But those two have been. I've kind of leaned on them for some of the things to try and figure out, what's been so good, because they've been through it all. They've been through numerous coaches, and they stuck around through the coaching change. And they were a little skeptical of Coach Chesney when he first got here, all the compete periods and things like, what are we doing here? And they're like looking around like, are we serious? Is this what we're going to do? Are we going to cheer everything that we do? But then they fell in love with that. And it honestly, it's a true brotherhood here. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've found out with this team. I mean, Tanner was the one that kind of broke it last year in the fall when I had him on during fall camp. He goes, honestly, the offense and defense really didn't talk to each other before. And that kind of blew my mind because of the success that the program has had and is continuing to have, that they were kind of separated. And I didn't even realize that, being so close to the program, that they were kind of they were separated in the locker room. They didn't really hang out together. And these guys know each other so well. There is a true fight for one another on the field. And I think that goes a long way. It's not just the offense and defense separated. It's all of them together. So it's a true brotherhood. And Cole and Tanner thought that was really something that Coach Chesney and this coaching staff does a tremendous job with. So I think that's first and foremost, that it's a brotherhood that's going to fight for each other. And you don't always get that. That wasn't always the case before. They still found ways to win. But this team is very, very, very together. And I haven't seen it. These 2 years have been pretty incredible to see, because you don't always see that with these teams. So first and foremost, I think that's the one thing. You can always count on these guys to be for one another and not tearing each other down or blaming the offense or blaming the defense, that they're always going to be fighting for each other. So I think that's first and foremost. And, these coaches, honestly, they're unbelievable on what they do. Coach Chesney, I get the chance to try and listen in on his conversations with his team as much as I possibly can. And he just wants the best for these guys. And he's trying to make them into great human beings as well as football players. And I mentioned that they bring in great guys, but this team is together, and they're going to fight, and they're going to again, be a team that is going to be just relentless at all times in everything that they do. So, and obviously you guys are the super fans, and there's so many of them. But for the casual fans, I think what I talked about with Mackay is that it matters here. And that goes a long way, that the players want to play even harder because it matters to you guys, the fans, and me, the broadcaster and a fan. It matters to everybody, and it means so much to everybody involved, that it's just, it's a special place. Sometimes it's hard to put into perspective if you're not around it, what exactly it is, kind of pinpoint what it is. But there's something different with this team. There just is. Like I said, it's night and day from a year ago, and they're a together bunch. Now, I've said this to multiple people. I think they potentially have the roster to be a better team than they were a year ago. But as you mentioned, Taylor, they've got a daunting schedule. It is a very, very challenging schedule. So they could be a better team, but maybe not have a better record. So, sure. and who knows? They may not. But I think this has the makings of a better team, and I think folks will be in for I think a fun fall, and it's a great home schedule too for the folks that want to come to all the home games.
Well, and we've kind of talked about in past episodes in the last couple of seasons. I mean, that year we went 13-2 with Signetti. There's a few bounces of that ball where that's a 6-6 team,
Yeah.
And same thing with last year. You talked about we didn't finish strong some of those games, but a 9-4 record. There were 2 or 3 games there that were lost right at the end of the fourth quarter. Could have easily have been a 1 or 2 loss team like the season before. So that's a great point. And but the schedule alone for next year, and not just the home games, the away games, and some of the opportunities we get to have some great environments there. I think the hardest thing for fans like myself, and I think the guys around here, is trying to get permission to, go to all the games on that schedule.
Into Louisville on a Friday night. That'll be a lot of fun. And then week 3, you go to the game 3, you go to Liberty after you go to Louisville. That'll be electric, I think, down in Lynchburg. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And Washington State coming here is a huge coup for them to be able to get a team like that to come to Harrisonburg. And that'll be kind of an interesting quirk in the schedule, because if they are trying to, what they hope is compete for a Sun Belt championship, it's the second to last game of the season. You could be competing for a conference championship, and then all of a sudden you've got Washington State coming to town this week right before Thanksgiving when you're in the midst of a conference championship run. So that could put a little quirk in the schedule, like, well, what do we do here? We obviously want to win the game, but we're also competing for a conference championship. So again, it's going to be a lot of fun. You have a Tuesday game at Texas State. The West opponents, I think, are better than they were last year. When you play Texas State on the road on a Tuesday, you get Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, for the first time coming to town. So again, it's a challenging week in, week out. It's always a challenge in the Sun Belt, but with the non-conference they have this year, and Weber State, we know all about Weber State. I think that'll be fun for fans in week 1, just because of the great games they've had in the past, and that's always a good FCS program. So you never know what can happen, but it's going to be a challenge. But I'm excited to see what they do with this schedule.
Didn't Washington State basically South Dakota State plus? I mean, that whole roster moved over there.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
And Dave, we're going to end on a really hard hitting question, because there was some controversy on our last episode because, well, me and one other person that's associated with this program, we're not as excited about the gas station that's coming a little bit south of Harrisonburg. You hear it's a Buc-ee's and it's great and everybody loves it. I would have been more happy if it was a Wawa, but I'm just curious. Do you have an opinion on Buc-ee's? Have you visited one in the past, and was it a good experience? Because I said a couple of us were less than enamored, but that's
not a couple. John was less than enamored.
No, Chandler showed too. He did not enjoy the South Carolina one. Are you pro Buc-ee's? Do you have an opinion, or are you just gonna?
I think I'm okay with Buc-ee's. Honestly, I've only been there one time. So I had never even heard of Buc-ee's. There was a Buc-ee's in the Midwest, but it was spelled different, and it was just like a normal gas station. So I didn't even know what Buc-ee's was. So I'm hearing all this talk and chatter, and we're getting one here, and this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm like, what is Buc-ee's? So when I was with the JMU softball team at the Sun Belt Championship tournament last year, it was at Texas State in San Marcos. And they took the entire team. They had a team bus take the entire team to Buc-ee's. So I'm just like, I got to go see what's going on. So all these student athletes were all excited about it. So I went in. I had to try the brisket. So the brisket sandwich was good. I don't know if it's the best I've ever had, but it was good. The jerky wall, everything going on. There's a lot. There's almost too much going on in there, but I'm excited for it, I guess. I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other, but I think I'm excited for it.
Dave's on our side of this one.
That's the largest Buc-ee's on the East Coast. Let's indulge.
The sign on 81, I will say, is huge. And more importantly, as I've said, I will become a super fan of Buc-ee's if they invest in JMU. And obviously in programs like this, local radio needs sponsors. So hopefully Buc-ee's
they do.
involved with the JMU Sports Network, and we'll all share a brisket sandwich together. So Dave, thank you as always. Again, you're pure class in everything you do, and really excited for your coverage over the weeks to come. Any preview of some things you're working on, or some things fans of your program could be looking out for?
I'm working on right now. I'm sitting down with a couple of guys that handle the football on every snap. So we'll leave it at that. There's only 2 that do that, and I think you guys probably know that one position might be a little more important than the other. Hopefully going to have some sit downs with some guys in that room.
Awesome.
Coming forward. And then also, I think over the summer, there's going to be some good coverage and content. We did this with basketball a couple of years ago where we went 94 feet, kind of like Jay Billis does. We're going to maybe go 100 yards with a bunch of new players.
Awesome.
And have
I just want you to know I completely not only stole your idea for the 94 yards, but I cited you with the collective video. So I just want to know that there was, I said, a la Dave Riggert. I think I actually said it when I was interviewing Sean Regan.
I appreciate that.
It is a compliment in every regard, though. So
I appreciate that. So we've got a lot of stuff in the works, and we'll have a lot of stuff here throughout the rest of spring and in the summer. And it won't be that far. We'll be getting down to New Orleans for the Sun Belt Media Days with all that, and talking to coaching some players. And then all of a sudden, the fall's going to be here.
Dave,
Well,
do you? I said I had one more, but I'll ask another. If it's
You can
too
keep
early,
going.
just tell me. Just hang up. Did any plans for the broadcast booth this fall? Will it be a rotation like it was in the past, or is that still being worked out?
It's a little bit being worked out, but Cole Potts, I think, has tentatively agreed to
Wow,
do every game coming up
that's awesome.
next year, as long as he's not playing in the National Football League or
There we go.
playing
And that
somewhere.
would be,
So
yeah, we would wish him well if he was. So
absolutely. So
that's
there's
awesome.
tentative agreement right now, kind of a handshake agreement that Cole Potts will be my analyst coming up this fall.
Awesome.
what
Awesome.
about David Dobbs? Is there going to be Cole and Dave, or Dave and Tanner? Or...
Well, so okay, there's a good story with that one, and I'll break it right now. I don't know if this will happen or not, but as you guys well know, and one of the Dave and Dobb shows that we did at Lido Pizza in Harrisonburg was it was after the North Carolina game when there was a lot of special teams things that happened. So Jack Mowry, one of the long snappers, Noe Ruelas, Ryan Hansen at the time, the punter, they came in and did the show, and I think you guys have figured out that Jack Mowry, he's a pretty good personality. Well, I've also found out that Logan Ketchum, the other long snapper who does punts and the long snapping, has a pretty good personality as well. And then Lexington Matthews, the new punter, obviously Kick Filet, as he calls himself, um, he's got a good personality. And they have come up with this show because at one of the practices during the pro day week, I was sitting there talking with Jake, and Jack Mowry, imagine that, comes up and goes, so he's not here next year. So no Dave and Dobbs. So what's it going to be? And I go, I don't know yet. And he's just like, I've got something for you. How about 4 specialists come on every single week, and I'll be there every single week, and we'll call it Fourth and Dave.
Okay.
I
like
thought that
that.
was actually
Yep.
pretty
That's
clever because
pretty
normally when they come on the field, it's usually 4th down. So unless it's a PAT, so it's
I
usually
like
4th
that.
down.
And I'm sure they'll find
So-
a way to phone in Harry from Australia now that he's back home. He'll weasel his way into that show one way or
He
the
would
other.
probably do that. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but there are conversations going on right now. So we'll see if that does happen. But that could be interesting with those guys, especially.
Long snappers have been fan favorites around here, so Mowry keeping that going is going to be a plus.
He's something else.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. I know we'll talk to you as we go throughout the summer and get ready for next season.
Guys, anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks again. All right. And with that, we're going to go to a guest who's actually just on the other side of this table desk, because I want to bring him on because he had a unique experience a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who followed the JMU football account, JMU does a coaches clinic where they bring local coaches in from the not only Harrisonburg area, from the state of Virginia, but really from the entire region. Some coaches from Pennsylvania. And if you don't know, our producer, Chandler Fortune, is a Super Bowl winning coach in youth football, is now making his way to the high school ranks to coach. And he got a chance to experience firsthand what this coaching staff is like when they're in the meeting rooms. And I think it's a really interesting perspective because it ties into what we're talking about what this spring is like. So Chandler's going to come around. And I'll start it off. So Chandler, first of all, take people inside what that experience was like. I know you were incredibly impressed with the access that was provided, but for those who aren't familiar, walk our listeners through what that kind of 48-hour experience was like with JMU football.
Yeah, I mean, first off, just the welcoming nature, and just you could tell that every single person in that building, in the Plecker Center, like, they just love ball. And I can't tell you how many times that was said while I was there. Just first off, Coach Cannon was greeting us at the door when we first walked in, huge smile, genuinely excited that we decided to take the time to come up there for 2 days. And I mean, it was more about us taking the time to go and spend time with them than it was them opening the door to us. Like, they were genuinely appreciative of our time. Like you said, there were coaches from Pennsylvania. I think Connecticut was there as well. A couple of high schools. We had a couple from the Valley area, and then obviously us down in Richmond. But yeah, it was a great variety. I think the thing that stood out to me was, and Coach Kennedy talked about it when he spoke, but also Chesney as well, is everything they do, and it was clear as day, everything has a purpose. Every second of the day is scheduled out, and everything they do is for a reason and is for what they do come the fall. One thing that really stood out to me was the use of the catapult that Dave was talking about. And it was cool to see that they broke down like what the catapult looks like in the fall during like what a game day was, and like they would track the athlete and see like the up and down, like the valley of a game. Like you'll be on the field and then you'll come take a rest, and they have simulated and made, that's why you see the practices the way they are, is to get those valleys, that up and down, to train the athlete's body for the fall, that up and down you're not going to have. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of coaches do, is you're going to have consistent and steady, exertion. Whereas that's not what you do on Friday nights or in this level up Saturdays. So just the attention to detail, I think, is really cool.
And then the other thing you talked to me about was not only the healthy rivalry that's going on, but that, to speak to the dynamic of how they structure that. You said that there was a lot of information about how they structure the practice that differently than you had seen, and that it caused you guys to think about different ways that you're going to run your practices, maybe at the high school, at the youth level.
Yeah, in both the scrimmage and the practice that we saw before or on Friday night, and then they did a little pseudo practice before the scrimmage on Saturday. At no point other than the scrimmage itself did they do 11 on 11, like running of plays, scripting that out. That didn't take place. It was a ton of individual and a ton of just attention to detail, one-on-one with the guys. And then also breaking that up with compete drills. And that's the number one thing we're taking back for our staff, is putting in the compete drills, and gonna divide our guys up in teams and start that in camp, just so that we can because the more you do it, the more it just becomes second nature to you, and you don't have to, like Dave was saying, that it took time for the guys to buy into celebrating everything you do. And that was the other thing they showed us in the compete drill, is there could be a perfect rep on exactly how they wanted it taught, but if the guys didn't celebrate it well enough and get hype enough, it was considered a bad rep, and they had to do it again.
And then the last thing I was going to ask you, just about the access, but also just how they treated you, like equals, is they were asking you for feedback about what they were doing well, what they weren't doing well, and they were very casual. Well, hey, we'll have a beer, we'll watch some film. This was not something where it was a box check, get you in for a couple drills. This was a unique experience where they brought you in and gave you full access to everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, we sat down, my staff, and we sat down for a solid almost 2 hours with Coach Kennedy and just talked ball. Had a couple beers, talked ball, showed he was asking us like what we run, what we see when we run stuff, and vice versa. It was really cool to see that. I think that the main takeaway that I took from the whole thing is you can't fake it when someone cares.
Yeah.
And that's what Coach Chesney gives out in everything he does. And the guys, it clearly works because the guys feel it. Like they were showing us clips, and Cannon was showing it when he spoke, of in special teams drills, they were going through it, and Coach Chesney was the gunner. He went down and he made the tackle. This is how it's supposed to be. He was in on all these drills. And when the guys see the coach willing to do it, willing to run with them and do the conditioning that they do, that goes a long way. Yeah. And I think that the other thing I noticed was there was a truly healthy rivalry between offense and defense. And I know you see that a lot during spring camp, but that's something that really stood out to me, was the amount of trash talking. But it wasn't, there was no, hatred or malice behind it. It was just they genuinely wanted to win and were having a good time, and you could see that in everything they were doing.
Awesome. Any other thoughts? Any of you guys have any questions for Chandler, or we can just keep the discussion going? Because I know a lot of themes around this spring ball. I know in terms of the precise, you've talked about, Michael, there being a obvious noticeable difference in terms of the size on the field from the players. Did that stand out to you? Anything from a physical perspective that you saw on the field in terms of not just the coaches, but from the players that you were watching them kind of train?
Oh yeah, they were huge. It definitely took took me back. I'm used to dealing with,
You love
13
a
and
little bit different.
13 and 14-year-olds and seeing,
You wish you could have fewer of them out there for you. Yeah.
yeah, seeing the O-line coach, that was what was funny was I forget who it was. He had a brain fart on a pass protection, and the O-line coach goes up and just starts ripping into him, and he's looking up at him the whole time while he's ripping into him. I'm like, it takes away a little bit of that little power, but no, it was awesome.
Awesome.
Chandler, tell us where you're coaching and what position.
So it's at Manchester High School in Richmond. They're starting a midi. It's called a middies program. So it's a freshman. Basically, it's freshman ball. So 7th and 8th graders. That because there's the in between where rec league ends at 7th grade, but you can't. JV is 8th grade, and a lot of times those 8th graders, they don't really have a home. So there's going to be this league through Manchester, and I'm going to be the offensive coordinator for that middies program, and then also help them with the offensive line.
And this is relevant to JMU because last time I checked, Manchester puts out some pretty big time players to college football. So Chandler's starting the pipeline, starting early, getting him comfortable with JMU. We'll make sure he's all swagged out with as much JMU gear as possible. So thank you, Chandler, seriously, for sharing your perspective, because I do think it speaks once again to one thing that we've heard a lot about this staff is they are so community focused, but to give back to the coaches in the area, to build and cement those relationships, not only is great for recruiting down the road, but it is really important to continue to develop the coaches of tomorrow. And I think that is a big focus of what I heard Coach Cannon say. It's like, look, a lot of us were high school coaches at one point. We were where you guys were. So, trying to bridge those gaps, I think is awesome to see.
Well, and like the theme and the mood was, you could tell that a lot of the coaches, obviously, except for Coach Hitch and, their guys coming in the last couple of weeks, you could tell like this staff, and in turn the entire program, there was a feeling of a lot more. They were very comfortable and a lot more like just comfortable in their own skin in the program, but they were not. They were hungry, and you could tell that they were not content. They were comfortable but not content with where they went.
And Steve, I don't know if you saw this. Steve and I were on Friday night at Jack's Hideaway for the Montpelier Collective event. I heard Coach Chesney say to multiple people, he's like, yeah, well, I know last season was a down season. I mean, he was, you could tell there was an energy to him and a passion that came through, where he is certainly not satisfied with the results that they had last season. And from all indications, from what I've heard from people at practice, is that fire and that passion has made it onto the field in a big way in terms of the preparations for this year.
Yeah, he was wound up. He was, I caught him. We were testing out the new bourbon, which was good. So I'd had a couple of those.
Once again, right here. This is the way, if anybody wants to see what the P-Lot bottle looks like, it's a series of 3 now. So this is for those out there, this is your U charm that you can add to the other, the bottles in the collection.
Yeah. So this is the one that was actually aged in a port barrel, and it's got an interesting twist taste to it.
Not as hot as the last one. So if the last one was a little bit intense, this one's a little bit smoother, I can say.
Yeah, this is really, and this will be in the ABC store next week. I think the next week or so. So you'll be able to pick it up. But Chesney was more animated than I've seen him. He's usually animated, but not this much. And I remember just talking to him, and my wife was there. I think a couple people were there, and he started off with, "We should have been 11-2," and he was like pissed. That I'm like, well, yeah, but you did really well. So yeah, I don't want to hear that. 9-4 is, all right, fine. You think 9-4 is good, but that's all right. But we don't think so. We should have been 11, and he was just chattering for like 10 solid minutes on how in the world did they lose the games they lost, and he's so pissed off that they lost them. And I was like, okay. I said, but now you've got a tougher schedule. He goes, yeah, that doesn't matter. We're going to be better than we were last year. So I'm like, oh, I was loving hearing it, but it was interesting to hear him say how disappointed he was that they were 9-4.
Yeah. So Taylor, I did want to get your perspective because we haven't had a chance to talk on this program though about what we dived into a little bit with Dave when he was on, but all of the chatter around finding ways to drive revenue for this program. We saw in basketball season putting a second level of floor seats there. They were testing that as something we could see in the future. Now the added potential revenue that will come in from another premium seating option on the alternative side of the stadium, as well as the end zone suites. We saw some new suite options for next year. Regardless of the individual specifics of these things, it at least shows that this program is very open to doing new things and not hiding behind something that I've heard you say a few times is like, well, we've always done it this way.
Right.
We're not tied to that anymore. And I think regardless of what plans come out in the future, at least from my perspective, that's exciting to hear that we are willing to be nimble in real time to try to find new ways to be creative in terms of the revenue generation, but also fan engagement and other aspects of how we drive this program.
Yeah, I mean, my freshman year at JMU was the 03 season. And then graduated in 07, worked there from 07 to 13. So I kind of got to experience that 10-year period where, my sophomore year was the national championship. Obviously, I worked there when we expanded Bridgeforth. But, I still think back to my freshman year. It was either my freshman year or right before that, but P-lot parking passes were given away with season ticket purchases. The ticket office, the place where you bought tickets on game day was a plywood phone booth shaped thing, and with change, sometimes you're going to have a vocal minority that will make a big deal when change happens. I mean, I know when we moved P-lot, I think when I was there, from a $300 donation to a $500 donation, the uproar was, well, you've almost more than doubled it, and things of that nature. But when you look at the value of what you get at JMU, I mean, our season ticket value is, I would argue where we get a high ROI for our season ticket value, for the game day atmosphere. You both have talked about it, both Jeff Bourne and his administration and Matt Ronan, their administration, has done a lot to listen to fans. Steve played a big role in making it known about how we can make concessions a lot easier, the game day environment, the DJs. And so, I think we have been used to a level of FCS football where, we were probably at the ceiling there of what was asked from our fans. And we've moved up to a level where there's a lot of money in FBS football. There's not just a lot of, we talk about NIL and all that stuff, but when it comes to not just that and the coaches' salaries, but just to put on the game day atmosphere of what you would expect at an FBS level, there's a lot of dollars there. So I love that Matt Roan is looking at new and creative ways. It started even last season when he said, there's some gaps. There's some gaps in the end zone there. Let's put a couple field suites there. And so every conversation I've had with Matt Roan and anyone from his administration, I mean, they are always tinkering with what's the next thing that we can do, and not waiting until an expansion happens, but how can we make a difference today? And, we've had conversations with him of what can we do in Bridgeforth Stadium and the Atlantic Union Bank Center when there aren't games? How can we use those facilities to generate revenue? So I would just, to any fan that's watching this or listening to this, there's going to be some changes, and those changes are going to require dollar amounts that are on par with peer programs that we have. It's money that's needed to fund the type of program that JMU is already producing at. But to everybody else, I would say this is a very forward-thinking administration when it comes to what kind of opportunity. No one's sitting on their hands. It's always, what can we do next? What can we do next? And so to that matter, I would encourage people to continue to voice their ideas, because this administration is listening.
Yeah, he's certainly active on Twitter and certainly pays attention to the comments. I've seen him engage with fans as well. Steve, I know you've been kind of involved in some of the thinking, but I am curious just your thoughts on the big picture direction that we're in now. There's obviously so much happening on the NIL side. Both teams from the flagship programs, your men's basketball team, your women's basketball team are very active in the portal now as well. There's just a lot of change. A new president was announced since the last time we hosted a show. That if you do some research and look into him as somebody who seemingly is very supportive of athletics, somebody who has mentioned in his previous stops of how important it is for engaging with alumni, importance with connective tissue to students. All of these things coming together at a time where we've all said there's probably never been a more important era for the growth of the program, but also never been more of an opportunity for fans to be intimately involved in the success of the program.
Yeah, our new president, also at his prior school, the school he's leaving, built an indoor practice facility for football at a Division III school. So if you're able to do that and get large gifts, which he did, I'm looking forward to the amount of things we're going to be doing from a facility standpoint, from a program standpoint, on the academic and on the athletic side. So there's a lot going on. I mean, you've seen, as you mentioned, the suites and the new seating over on the old side. I imagine we're going to hear something at some point about the expansion of the stadium. I don't know when that's going to come, but Matt Roan's already kind of put that out there a couple months ago. So I think we're going to hear something relatively soon about that. We're going to, people got to get ready because revenue sharing is coming after the House settlement. The dust settles with that probably this week. And, that's going to mean additional revenue that we're going to have to raise. So the collective is going to go into a different phase within Honors One. We're still going to be around. We're going to be more of an advisory board is what it looks like. And that's going to be great. We're happy to do that in whatever role that they need us, but the bourbon's going to stay. So we're going to keep rolling that bourbon out every quarter or so with a new one and be able to sell that in the ABC stores, hopefully, so that we can raise revenue. Because if we sell enough of that, that dumps a lot of money into the NIL bucket, which is what we're going to need to do. So I'm excited to see when the new president starts on July 1. I'm very happy that he's an academic guy, a guy that loves athletics, a guy that's kind of cut out of the same cloth as the rest of us, kind of an Uncle Ron, Lynn Rose combined type guy is what he seems like to me. So I'm excited and hoping that, we stretch. We don't stretch a lot at JMU. We usually do very conservative things. Like we're going to do a 7-year, fundraising goal, and our goal is $200 million. Well, to me, that's nothing. We raised that, I think, in year 3 or 4 of that campaign. I'm hoping that we start to stretch because our endowment needs to be $1 billion. And we need big ideas. We don't need people that are afraid to fail. And I think this university over the years has been afraid to fail. I don't think Matt Roan's not in that. The people that we've got on the athletic side aren't afraid of that. Charlie King was not afraid of that. And I think our new president won't be afraid of that. But we've got to be willing to stretch. And so that means it's going to stretch on all of us. So if we run a $1 billion campaign, to me, that's what we should be doing as a university, because right now we're woefully behind on the endowment side of the house where university should be. And we've really got to build that to attract more students and have more scholarships for more students to get more honors kids to come here versus going to Tech. Because right now Tech is doing a great job with the money they have getting kids to go down to Blacksburg to their honors program instead of going to JMU. And we can divert a bunch of those people to come to JMU. So that's my hope, that I hope we see in the next 2 to 5 years.
And then last question before we get to a very special version of our final thoughts. Michael, as we go into the next week when the portal opens again, what are you looking to see? Obviously, we don't know who's going to possibly leave JMU, but are there any areas that you're looking at to see? I know there's already been kind of offers going out on X and conversations happening. What do you have your eye on in terms of what you could possibly see coming into Harrisonburg if there's a position of need?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, looking at post-spring game last year, I think we had Kai Mans come in, Spence came in. I think Eric O'Neill probably committed at that time as well. So we had some big-time contributors come in after spring ball. And so I think we're excited for that, particularly at the linebacker position. I saw we already offered a Ohio linebacker, all-conference player, a graduate player at that, so a 23, 24-year-old talent. I could see us loading up a little bit more at corner and then also at wide receiver. We talk a lot about size in this program today, but, I think we kind of joked around, how does it feel to have 6-foot receivers or taller all across the board? It looked different on the field with Landon Ellis, and you could tell. But also, like, it'd be good to get some more guys in there, maybe in the slot or maybe outside to get them a little bit more speed. So I think those are interesting positions. Also, like, I think you're never not looking for a quarterback, right? I think it's like, who knows what's going to happen over there. And I'd be remiss to talk about it. Like, it was our first time seeing Matt Sluka and Camden Coleman and Billy Atkins out there yesterday. Coleman and Sluka, both 6'3", 220. They look the part, right? They are big, physically mature college quarterbacks. And I was talking to some of the alpha dogs on the sideline. You watch how they hold themselves on the sideline. You watch how they command the huddle, and it's really impressive. And Billy in there as well. I think Billy's probably the most impressive one. But I think portal-wise, could we get another defensive lineman? I mentioned O'Neal and Mans. Like,
We did just bring in a defensive lineman, correct me, from Colgate, correct?
Oh yeah, we're recruiting winners now too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think we're excited about that, right? I think 6'3", 290, all conference defense lineman, another 23, 24-year-old type talent. But can we get another edge rusher in there, right? Can we get someone in that Mans type-esque position? I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. So we're going to see this roster change around. We saw it last year. The fall roster looked totally different from the spring. The defense was all over the place. And I think we talked about simplicity of this episode. They are already light years away, and not just speaking anecdotally, but they are just, you could tell by the way they're talking, the way they're commanding the huddle and such. And I'm excited to see what we can recruit and the type of athletes Chesney can bring in here.
Yeah, and remember, is when you see some players leave, it's natural occurrence to want to react to that, maybe even more than you naturally should. But again, I think your point about bringing in the Eric O'Neals last year after the portal, that is a sign of you never know what's coming back the other way, and there's a lot of layers to all of this.
Taylors, the Spences, we had a couple other DBs that came in after spring ball that have contributed a lot in the fall. I'm more than confident to see us do something like that again.
Yeah, one last point on the spring game, though. It was good to see with those two quarterbacks. First of all, Camden Coleman drops a block that leads to the touchdown on the one. And then Sluka a couple times, his first carry of the game on a quarterback option read, he went to lower the shoulder. Then the referee's quiet. We got to blow the ball. You're supposed to be non-contact, but a sign of what I think is to come. Also,
Sluka's tough to watch in a spring game, right? Because his all-around game and what he can do with the ball in his hand, and you can't really do that in a controlled environment.
And I heard in the post game, Bob said that there was some controversy on the last touchdown of the game because they ran an inside quarterback read. You're not supposed to be able to do that because you can't hit the quarterback. So he said that would be debated for years to come, the outcome of the spring game. Also would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Alonzo Barnett also made an appearance at spring practice. His recovery, from what Chesney has said in public comments, is well along the path towards him being a viable potential option as we get into the fall. And as I think any coach would always say, the more options that you have at that position that have talent and the ability to do it, the better your position is going to be, because you never know how a season is going to progress. As we've seen with Sluka in the past at Holy Cross, he is a quarterback that takes some hits. So, I have a feeling, regardless of, we know we're going to see multiple quarterbacks as we go throughout what is going to be such a challenging season. So it's great to see that this staff is continuous in their efforts to bring in talent and to let them compete. And obviously Chandler got a chance to see that firsthand in the coaches clinic. With that, we're going to turn the floor over to Steve Brown for his first final thoughts. And then I think the rest of us are going to react to his comments. But Steve, you've been an incredible, integral member of our team from day one, and the floor is yours.
Well, to my Sound Off mates in the wonderful audience, today is my last broadcast on the Sound Off. I've decided to retire from podcasting, and I'm glad to leave this great podcast in the hands of my friends Jonathan, Chandler, Michael, and Taylor. Delivering this message has filled me with a lot of emotions. It's been an incredible journey, sharing laughter, insights, meaningful conversations about JMU sports with everybody, including our guests, everybody that come on. But one of my 2025 resolutions was to scale back on some things, and so I can shift gears and focus on some other things. I'll continue to do things with JMU Athletics and on the academic side in whatever capacity that they need me to do it. I plan to be doing, some work with Matt Rowan and some other folks on some projects. I'm expected that I think I'm going to be engaged with the collective in the new form that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. That as we're rolled into Honors 1, which we're already there, there's some things we're going to be doing. On a personal note, Alice and I welcomed our fourth grandchild on February 10th. So we've got three granddaughters and one grandson. And on March 7th, I also moved my dad into assisted living. My mom's going to join him in May. And so, as you can imagine, there's quite a bit to do as the oldest child and the only lawyer in the family. So, everybody likes to make fun and make jokes of lawyers until you actually need one. So the last 8 weeks with my parents has been an interesting ride, to say the least. To my co-hosts, words can't express my gratitude for your friendship and the support in this journey. I'm the oldest guy on this thing by a long shot. You see all the things everybody's captioned. You got people that graduated, many more years after I did. And you tolerated a lot of my old man tendencies, which I appreciate. I was probably overly organized for most of you on this, and I know that. And people that know me the best, and you guys do, and other people out there know, what a pain in the butt I can be on organization, because I have a very, very solid way of organizing things, and I only see things as a lawyer sees them, even including this podcast. Sometimes that's great, sometimes that's not. I understand that. So I appreciate, everything that you guys put up with me, and I appreciate everything that you guys bring to the table. And this has been fun. To our audience, your engagement, your feedback, your encouragement have been a driving force with our podcast. Your passion and curiosity have inspired and challenged a lot of our perspectives, and continually helps us strive for excellence in the podcast. Thank you for allowing us to be in your lives, for the times that you all tune in and listen to us. And as I step away from the microphone, I'll leave, a lot of memories and a heart full of gratitude. I'm really thankful and confident that this podcast will continue to thrive. So it's not really a goodbye. It's, really a see you later. I'm not dying. At least I don't, not that I know of. And it's just broadcasting on Sunday nights with my friends. I just won't be doing that anymore. So that being said, you guys know I may turn up as a special guest. You may see me wear a Mrs. Claus outfit, or you may see me wear a wrestling outfit. You never know. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I really look forward to listening to you all without being behind the microphone. So thanks.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I'm still not processing this news yet. I understand it's coming from a good place, and there's a lot of really good reasons behind it. I can tell you will be making guest appearances, at least in some post-game recaps, because I'm just going to come find you because you're so readily accessible in your perch in the club lounge, as well as probably some pre-game videos. But I just want to personally say this podcast does not happen, does not get started without your passion, without your guidance, without your knowledge of everything it takes to put this type of thing together. But more importantly, it doesn't happen without your friendship and the countless hours you put into it. You made this what it is, and you'll continue to shape it, because I know you're a phone call away. And it is bittersweet, yes, but we are so excited for what you're doing with your grandkids and your family, and also your continued engagement with JMU Athletics, and you will help, as you have in the past, to shape this program into the future and to make it stronger. And I'm excited to see how your influence and your impact continues to make JMU the special place that it is. And that's my final thought.
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just kind of thinking in my head. I'm just like John. I'm still sort of processing all of this. But I think a resounding thank you, Steve. I remember, like many of us, over a decade ago, meeting on some sort of social media, messaging each other, to then meeting in person for the first time and handshaking and sharing a beer and maybe a meal, and to building a relationship, to you encouraging me to get more involved with JMU, not just from the fandom level, but also just truly getting involved in all different phases, to then becoming, just honestly, Steve, like a great friend and someone I very much look up to. And Courtney and I both do that. And I think, for someone that's getting married here in 2 months, and Courtney and I sit around a lot and go, what do we want our marriage to look like? What do we want the future to look like? And we look at you and Alice, and we just, so that's the goal right there, right? Like, that's what we want to see ourselves, and how many years and whatnot, and goals is all we think about. And Alice has developed such a great relationship with Courtney, and me with you. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I feel like I'm saying goodbye, but no, this is just like, like we'll still talk and whatnot. We'll just won't have 8 o'clock together on Sundays. But thank you again, Steve. And it was always a pleasure. And I'm excited to see the impact you'll do a little bit more behind the scenes.
The JMU athletic program that is today, Steve has been a engaged and vocal advocate for well over a decade. When I started working at JMU after graduating, Steve was a part of a very small group of folks that were very involved. And back then, before social media, we had the message boards, and Steve was very involved in the message boards, and got to know him through there, also through the Richmond chapter of the Duke Club. I believe it was Capitol Ale House where I sat down with Steve right before the expansion of Bridgeforth. He was one of the first club seat contract holders for JMU. And he wasn't just giving ideas, but also kind of showing how they could come about at JMU. And it was him and a few others like him that really, from an external perspective, painted the road for what JMU athletics has become, and especially JMU football. Steve stayed in touch with me when I went out to Texas to UTSA. I used to work at UTSA, by the way. And my 8 years out there, Steve and I stayed in touch to the point where when we moved back to Virginia, COVID was still going on, but he was brave enough to meet me halfway between Richmond and Roanoke at Bodo's Bagels, which, to those Charlottesville folks out there, that was actually my first ever Bodo's Bagels experience. And I felt I'd heard about it for a long time. But yeah, I mean, Steve has always been there for me. And I think a lot of people, he's already left a legacy on JMU athletics and continues to do so behind the scenes in a lot of ways. So it's been an honor to have him on this podcast and his perspective, and look for, again, like Michael said, we're not saying goodbye, but he's a big reason for why a lot of things the way they are today.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't say, I think just like everyone else, just thank you, Steve, for everything. I just think guidance is a big one. And just, I think a lot of times, just having another perspective, and wisdom, I think has been a huge benefit to our show, and definitely going to miss you. But, I don't think I think you'll still have your input. And we're just a group chat away. So, definitely going to miss you, but, good luck at everything. And Taylor, I just want to make sure I heard you right. You did work at UTSA. Is that some
UTSA, Roadrunners in San Antonio, the University of Texas at San Antonio. I worked there.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Well, the joke's on Steve, because I'm just going to keep emailing him the invites to the show until he blocks my Gmail. So that will, one way or the other, he may accidentally click on a link next season. But Steve, I know you that's probably more attention than you wanted us to focus on you, but we'll end with a thank you. And to our viewers, this is the final show of season 3. And while I am sad that Steve is transitioning into another role, I'm very excited about season 4, because when season 4 kicks off, that means football's right around the season. We are well underway with talking to some potential new sponsors, to doing some new things to get you involved, some format changes that we're really excited about. So stay tuned. We are just getting started with JMU Sound Off, and that's because of you. That's because of your engagement, your passion for this program. This has never been about us. It will continue to not be about us, and we're going to find new ways to make it about you, the fans that fuel this program, and the student athletes and the coaches that we all try to continue to amplify, because it's without them, there is no James Madison University athletics. And that's why we do this on Sunday nights. And that's because of your passion and energy. So to the JMU sports teams that are continuing to compete as we go throughout the spring, we will be cheering you on. To the athletes who are well underway for their preparations for the fall, we wish you all the best. We wish you health. We wish you energy as you go through a much deserved break, as well as you go into the summer months. And to the fans, fuel up, because we know the season is right around the corner. To our sponsors who joined us this season, again, thank you. Without your support of this program, there is no JMU Sound Off. Montpelier Collective, continue to support them. Support the P-Lot Bourbon at championsdr.com. Check out the ABC stores in the weeks to come, over 150 locations. To Mike Norwood and the team at Where's Woody, they've got some great new products. Mike's been sending me some sample pictures of some new gear that's right around the corner that is going to be great for all the JMU fans out there. Where's Woody.com. Thank you to Jared DeRuby and the team at Talent Core. Joe Shoker, not sure there's maybe second to Steve, there's a more passionate, energized, and engaged family than the Shokers that continue to invest in this program, but as well as JMU Athletics. Thank you to Joe. As far Carol Benassi and the team at Your Purple Nation. Some expansion news possibly around the corner for their store in Richmond, but she continues to bring new merchandise to the JMU family. And again, no one out there more passionate about the JMU world than Carol. You guys are the family behind JMU Sound Off, and we want to say thank you. We look forward to seeing you back next year. And with that, we will end tonight's show and tonight's season. Good luck. Everybody have a happy and safe spring. We'll see you in the fall. And as we end every show with Go Dukes.